Hello my friends, let's start from the military map review. Let's zoom into the Bakhmut city. It is the hardest spot for both of the sides, and today Russia gained some sort of the territory near to the railway station. Just yesterday Ukraine took control over the railway station again, and today Russia, as you can see, moved across the road, taking this long building under their control. The railroad in the city was built on the artificially made hill, so it's on the high ground, which creates the natural obstacle for both of the sides. But apparently Russia took control over the most part of the railroad. However, on the north part of the city, or here, they've been cut because this bridge was destroyed, so there is no movement from them for several days. But still, I do expect the further movement to this residential area. From the Wagner side, it's just a matter of time. But what I can say that they are moving slower and slower. It means that they are faced with a very heavy Ukrainian resistance. And as for the tactical map, everything more or less valid. Here, just Russia got the attack vector towards Hromove. This vector is absent on the deep state map. However, it is presented on this tactical map for a very long time without further movement. So now the main battles are for Hromove, for the northern part of the residential area, and also for the railway station. Near to the city center there's the fighting as well, but mostly our forces left that area. However, Russia still struggles getting control over this territory behind the railway. And if we go to Avdiivka, there is no change in the military map today. However, I got the information from one of the soldiers that Ukraine did the successful counterattack in that particular area. I cannot say you where it was. We were able to capture some of the Russian soldiers in this area, and just a couple of days ago we captured 40 soldiers in the Bakhmut. And also today it's been confirmed that Ukrainian soldiers captured Russians in Marinka. And yes, we also went on a counterattack mission in that particular area. Russia really struggles with that small town. They demolished it completely, but still unable to take control over Marinka. And today there is no change for this side, so hope for a update tomorrow. And just while I'm recording this video, it was the report of the drone attack in Belgorod. Belgorod is really not far away from the Ukrainian border. As it was reported, the local power plant was under attack, but from what I can see, there is the electricity in that area. So that attack was probably not really successful, and idea for the Ukrainian side is not to cause the disruption in the Russian infrastructure as they did to Ukraine. Maybe this particular power plant was supplying the electrical power to the local military unit. Otherwise, I don't see any profit in damaging the Russian infrastructure. We don't have resource to shut down the energy in Russian Federation, plus they have lots of the nuclear power plants, and even Russia couldn't shut down Ukraine. Yes, we struggled with electricity before in autumn and winter time, but now there are almost no any problems, and Ukraine even sells the energy to the European Union. Today it was the Easter celebration for the Orthodox Christians, including Ukrainians and Russians. That is why there was the big exchange, and we got 130 soldiers back to Ukraine. And Ukraine transferred 5 of the Kadyrovites warriors back to Chechnya, and they were greeted by the locals over there, by their relatives. But what Kadyrov said, he said that they should go back and fight, because it is the shame for Kadyrovites warrior to be imprisoned by the enemy, and they have to pay for it with their blood. Well, maybe for Russia it's the good choice. You sometimes ask me about the losses from the Ukrainian side. Well, today the Ukrainian Defense Minister Reznikov said that Ukrainian army lost less than 50,000 soldiers. So he really hasn't said the number, less than 50,000. Well, one is less than 50,000 as well. He also somehow compared the losses with the Turkish earthquake, saying that Turkey lost more people in the earthquake than Ukraine during this war. I disagree with that comparison. You cannot compare the war casualties with natural disasters. And mainly because of the causes of the losses, in general, every military conflict might have been avoided, but not the earthquake. I agree that some of the buildings in Turkey were not built according to the standards that also increased the number of the casualties. Also, if we take into account not just military losses in Ukrainian war, you'll see that number would be close to 200,000. And mostly because Mariupol was encircled by the Russian forces and they built civilians using aviation bombs. It's a clear war crime. So if you want to find out the average losses for Ukrainian side, just divide the Russian losses by 3. They are now attacking, so they lose 3 times more. That's it. The real number from Ukrainian side will not be presented, I think, even after the war is over. From the Russia, same story, every side wants to decrease their own losses and increase the losses for the enemy. Hopefully in the future some independent statistics will show us the real number, but again it will be plus minus 5 or even 10,000. Also he said that the European Union and the United States want to participate our victory. Well, I think it's very early to say about the Ukrainian victory. It's imminent, yes, but it will not happen like that. It's not in a nearby perspective, and years will pass until Ukraine will get the full victory over Russia. He also said that the main goal of the leaked Pentagon documents is to undermine trust between the allies. I think it was not done for that purpose. Honestly, I think that guy, Jag, he wanted just to show off in his community in Discord, and you may call him a black swan. So something unexpected really happened that touched everything. Well, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that Russia is capable to perform those spy operations at that high level. But I agree with Reznikov about the possible future outcome for the Russian Federation. It will be formatted for sure, and probably into different states like Tatarstan, Bashkiria, Chechnya, Dagestan and other regions. Yes, I think it's really a highly likely scenario, and Russia is moving towards it step by step. Today we're gonna speak about it as well. Speaking about Reznikov, you already probably know my attitude towards that person. After all the corruption scandals with the food for the soldiers, with other supplies, I think that he should have resigned from his position. There is better alternative right now, for example Budanov, and from what I know Zelensky was working with Budanov to replace Reznikov, but somehow that stopped. Also speaking with some volunteers about the current problems in the Ukrainian army with supplies. We don't even have thermal cameras. Well, we have them, but not enough. We got the requests from the guys from the front lines, and they need everything. Well, I think it's not really that expensive to provide thermal cameras for our guys on the front lines. Those are not the expensive rockets or any kind of the very sophisticated equipment that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So why do volunteers have to buy them again and again? Well, I can tell you that without volunteers, without the help also from our Western allies, this war would have been ended a long time ago, and unfortunately not in Ukrainian favor. Plus, some people from the military command, they're very volatile, they got the old Soviet mindset, so it's very hard to move them around with a new equipment, new realities, let's say. And yes, Ukrainian army is much better equipped nowadays compared to the Russian army, but it's not the win of the Ukrainian government. It's our allies who help us from the United States, UK, Germany and other countries. And again, my friends, it's my own opinion based on the information I got speaking with my friends in Ukraine. We just hope for the change in our government after the war is over, but what some politicians are doing, it's complete madness. But corruption is not just in Ukraine. The Focus media says about more than 137,000 euros that were spent from the German budget on the makeup of the Minister Baerbock, the Minister of the Foreign Affairs. Focus says that Baerbock spent those funds for her personal makeup artist. And they also say that Burbach spent 178,000 euros for photographer in 2022. Well, maybe it's not the corruption, but those services are way too expensive, and I think the makeup artist could have performed a better job. And I think that even for officials, you need to pay for your own personal stuff like hygiene, makeup and clothes. Well, here I may agree about the photographer job. It's really expensive and could be paid from their budget because it will be used for the government media. Recently we got those videos published with lots of the Ukrainian forces, Ukrainian troops marching somewhere. And based on the weather conditions, I would say that it's the spring or autumn time, mainly the springtime, so it is the fresh video, at least it could be. And there are not hundreds but thousands of Ukrainian soldiers, and I guess I know where it is because seeing those signs far away, this is probably the airfield, because the square signs like that are used to determine the visibility range. And we have the same sign on the back side, so there is the runway very close to that column. And we got the fence very close to those signs, so probably it is really the runway. They are walking on the unpaved runway. They are not going to fly somewhere, but it's just a training range for those soldiers, and they are getting ready for the full-scale counterattack. And according to the Institute of the War Researchers, the Ukrainians' counteroffensive will be very difficult. Russia got around 140,000 soldiers in defense, plus they dig down to the ground, creating obstacles like mines, trenches, tank barricades and others. And unfortunately, the Ukrainian side still doesn't have the superiority over our enemy, so for 140,000 defending soldiers, we should have 420,000. And still we are in lack of the information of how many soldiers the Ukrainian side prepares for the future counteroffensive. The Russian side says about 200,000 soldiers, which is kind of equilibrium in our case. Plus, Russia also has the air superiority, at least over the areas that they are controlling, and still they do not dare to go over Ukrainian controlled territories to fly, for example, over Dnipro, Zaporizhia, but they do fly very close to the front lines, sometimes losing their airplanes. Nevertheless, I am very optimistic about the future Ukrainian counterattack. We don't know the exact date, but it will be successful. We're gonna put the Patriot systems very close to the offensive point, and we're gonna eliminate the risk from the Russian aviation. Plus, Russia doesn't have what the Ukrainian army has, and it's the spirit to fight for the land. Most of the Russian soldiers are still out of clue why they should fight in Ukraine. And I think Russian elites, Putin and his circle, they also do not know the real cause. Well, the real goal for Putin was to take control over the most part of Ukraine, including Kiev, in a few days. Quite easily with not many losses, but that goal was a failure. And they don't have the other one. They try to make up it on the way. That is why we see the change in the aim of the special operation of the Russian forces. First it was the demilitarization, denazification, now to take the territories of Zaporizhia and Donbass, then to avoid the NATO coming closer, and then NATO comes closer to Finland. They say that they need to secure Russia, and now they say that if they fail in Ukraine, Russia will fail in that case. So strange goals, and soldiers did not understand that. On the Ukrainian side, everything is very understandable. So we believe in the armed forces of Ukraine, in our soldiers who fight for freedom. Awesome news, I might say. The Ukrainian army start to receive 120mm high explosives mines for the mortars before we start to receive 82mm and 152mm. And those mines are made in Ukrainian factories, but the production mostly moved outside Ukraine. And the problem that the production has just started in January. So my biggest accusation towards the Ukrainian government and Ukrainian defense minister, let's say Reznikov, who is responsible also for supplies, is that Ukrainian army wasn't really prepared for this full-scale war. Even after the officials from the United States and the United Kingdom told President Zelensky, told to Ukrainian officials that guys, be ready for the war, the Putin is going to attack very soon, and they started to tell about it way before even 2022. And it seems like no one listened. And again, let's look at the map. This territory on the south, it was just presented to Russia. They went to Kherson without any fighting, they went to Melitopol without any fighting, and to Berdyansk. The only city on the south that provided the resistance against the Russian occupiers was Mariupol, and Russia lost lots of their forces in that city. Yes, Mariupol was destroyed, but it was crucial to stop the further advancement of the Russian forces in other areas, like for example Zaporizhia, Dnipro, and towards the Kharkiv region. And still, we are out of the answer on the biggest question: who was responsible for that failure operation to defend the southern part of Ukraine? Yes, military command says that there was the general who performed the suicide a little later, but I don't see any kind of the investigation happening. And it's not only me, some of the independent journalists in Ukraine are asking for the same questions, but there is no any way out to find the answer. And now our soldiers have to pay the biggest price with their own lives, trying to free this territory from the Russian occupiers. So what I want to say that the Ukrainian government is not ideal in its actions, and I trust more our allies than current Ukrainian government. Well, I'm quite okay with the President Zelensky. He is doing a nice job getting more equipment to Ukrainian army. He also gets more and more allies into our circle. But for the Ukrainian parliament and some of the politicians, those guys are just nonsense. I hope we're gonna get rid of them after the victory or before the victory. Just for you to understand, the last year Ukrainian parliament voted to cut down the salaries for the soldiers. Not just by a few percent, but by thousands of percent. But they increased their own salary in parliament because they say they work too hard. And now with the pressure from the people, from the military, they brought back the salary for our soldiers. It's good. But now they want to introduce the law that will not allow our military guys to go to politics. And there are lots of that stuff happening in Ukrainian parliament. Even during the wartime, there are lots of the corruption, and we need just to get rid of them. Yes, Ukraine is still much better democracy compared to the Russian Federation. Russia is simply the second North Korea, but we have way to go to reach our allies. Alright, there's some news about Poland and Hungary. They say that they ban Ukrainian grain delivery or food imports into their country. However, they will still provide transit for the other countries. Well, I probably know for Poland because they got very cheap grains from Ukraine and the local farmers went for the protests because they couldn't sell their products. And it's not a secret that in European Union countries like Poland, Hungary, you have to pay more for electricity, water, for spare parts for your tractor, for everything compared to Ukraine. That is why the Ukrainian grain is way more cheaper compared to the grain that was produced in the European Union. So after the protests, Polish government understood the problem with their own farmers, because farmers, they pay taxes, and also farmers consume the Polish products themselves. So actually, the more products you have produced in your own country, the better economy and more independent economy you'll have. There is also a big plus in Ukrainian cheap food because the price for the end product could be much cheaper. And the key word here is could be, because someone from this long chain to deliver the final product could take the extra profit. They defend their own market, their own farmers, their own people, let's say, but it seems like European Union is not okay about it. So it is kind of the sensitive topic. You may look at it from the different angles. So tell me in the comment section, what do you think about it? The bad situation now is happening on the north part of Kiev. We have floodings and they are quite severe. You can see the parking space near to the bridge. Well, actually, it's not that bad as it could have been, as it was years before. For example, in 2013, it was the massive flooding. But here, more or less, it's, I would say, alright, but still brought some devastation to the facilities. And it's my personal topic, the aircraft of Ukraine International Airlines that we lost on 8th of January 2020. Lots of the people lost their lives, including the crew. Iran launched 2 of the missiles, and both of those hit the Boeing 737-800. So today Iran sentenced 10 military members to prison. They gave them up to 10 years in prison from what I understood. I think that term is very low compared to what they've done. Probably I should record a separate video telling you more details about the tragedy, and now I'm not obligated to anyone. I work for myself and I can tell everything that I know. And again, it was not the international trial over this case. It is like separate Iranian court, and we don't know those military members if they were honestly guilty or not. So Iran itself is a very close country. And for me, it's hard to believe that this trial was according to the book of law. Some of the good news for Ukrainian aviation: Antonov Airlines will receive 1 more Antonov 124. It will not be produced in Antonov factory, but they will give the Russian Antonov 124 that was arrested in Canada after the war had started, and now Canada will pass that aircraft to Ukrainian airline, and those airplanes are very important because they are also used in delivering the supplies, the military supplies as well, for Ukrainian army. There are not many planes in the world that may carry lots of the cargo like tanks and armored vehicles. And we received lots of the units from the United States and Canada, and the only way how you can deliver those fast is using those airplanes. I don't know the news about the SkyUp crew. There are 36 Ukrainian crew members and other representatives stuck in Khartoum. I just hope that they were evacuated from this scene, and the conflict continues. So the images are coming from today. You can see lots of the armored vehicles were captured by the army units, and I think that those guys are rebels or the special forces, but still I'm not sure, because special forces, they also wear military kind of uniform, or maybe it is the military. So tell me in the comment section. And we have the satellite image, quite a good quality of the part of Khartoum city, and you can see that the military headquarters are very close to the international airfield. That is why some of the airplanes, including the Ukrainian Boeing 737 of SkyUp Airlines, were severely damaged. You can see one of the airplanes on fire. It is the Ilyushin Il-76 destroyed airplane. This is the destroyed Airbus A330, the airplane that I showed you yesterday, and this is the SkyUp Airlines Boeing 737. Luckily, the other SkyUp Boeing 737, which is standing very close to the destroyed one, seems to be okay. Plus, we have destroyed turboprop aircraft. It is not being identified, and there is the other smoke in the city area. I just hope that this situation will be resolved as soon as possible. Well, for the recent week, we saw lots of the HIMARS attacks on the Russian ammunition depots, and they lost many. Some Ukrainian group says that Ukraine is getting ready for the counterattack today. Not sure about it. Well, I got the information from the Belgorod group, which is the Russian group, that Ukraine is getting ready to attack Belgorod, Kursk, Bryansk, to exchange those cities for Crimea. And they say that this situation is scary. Well, if that happens, it's really unexpected scenario for me. But some of the power stations are already on fire in Belgorod. Maybe they were so scared that they started to post this information that the Ukrainian army is getting to attack them. And Bradleys were delivered to Ukraine. This video was filmed in Ukraine, but I think that we should repaint those Bradleys. Alright, I've decided to analyze the speech or the big interview of war criminal Prygozhyn. He says about the current situation in Bakhmut that Ukraine continues to resist and sends more reinforcements, and Wagner is struggling over there. Those are the words of Prygozhyn, and what he also says that Wagner keeps Ukrainian army around Bakhmut, letting the other forces of the regular Russian army to be prepared for the possible Ukrainian counterattack. So they sacrifice their lives for it, and also he says about 200,000 Ukrainian army that is ready for the counterattack. He says that in a good scenario Russia may resist that counterattack and go on to their own counterattack and get the vast part of Ukraine, but he also adds that it's unreal scenario. More likely that Ukraine will break the Russian defense, and he also says that Ukraine will go on a counteroffensive because they have the window. They are getting ready for the counteroffensive. If the Ukrainian side will hold the forces or the army in a full ready condition for a very long time, the army will just get demoralized. So they need to release the energy into the counterattack. And here he says about geopolitics, the main aim for the United States is to collapse the Russian Federation in its current form, to reform Russia into different states. He says just to suck the resources out from the country. And he also says about the deep state of Russia, which has the same meaning as the deep state in United States. Probably you know about this conspiracy theory. And the deep state for Russia is the elite around Putin also that is pro-Western, that build their future for them and for their families in the Western countries, in countries of NATO. Actually, it's true. Most of the Russian politicians got the property in Italy, in Spain, in the United States of America, in London. Their kids got the education not in Russia, but in the United States and UK mostly. And now, because of this special operation, they lost the future for them. That is why this deep state in Russia will work against the guys like Prygozhyn. They will cut the ammunition for his army, they will forbid him from taking more prisoners from the Russian prisons. The only thing why Prygozhyn still has some sort of the power and why he still has the Wagner army is because of Putin. And here he says that the deep state will destroy the Russia, we should not negotiate with Ukraine, otherwise Russia will be more liberal and liberals will just demolish it. So it's very hard to find the logic in his words over here, but from what I understood, that Russia needs to lose the war with Ukraine to go to the bottom and to jump from it, ruining the control of the deep state, as happened to Germany after the First World War. Yes, basically he got this comparison in his speech, and probably they want to put new Hitler in power. And also he says that Putin will stay in power, yes, obviously because he has the personal connection, but they will demolish the deep state in that case. So again, it's the clear sign of the fight between the Russian elites, and here we are also speaking about Shoigu and his regular army. They have many more resources compared to Prigozhin. We say about the politicians around Putin, and we also speak about the Russian FSB and their angry patriotic club with the war criminal Strelkov. They're all against Prigozhin and against each other. So it's a very big game and the big conflict which is good for Ukraine. And here are the signs that Russia for sure may collapse, and the main idea for United States and other allies is to make this collapse controllable. And maybe if civil war starts in Russia, we need the joint forces to take Russia under control because they have nukes. So it's one of the scenarios, and Prigozhin is also very concerned about it, but his idea is to dойти до дна, it means go to the bottom, to lose the war against Ukraine. Скинув груз глубинного государства, to get rid of the weight of the deep state. That's his plan. He realizes that they cannot win the war against Ukraine. And the only way how Putin may keep his power is to lose it controllably. accusing the Russian elite and replacing them with Prigozhin and his friends. So you may also count it as an ultimatum for Putin from Prigozhin. Well, Prigozhin is really talkative, but he has no logic in this form, so Prigozhin never ever write books, alright, or memoirs or something. Probably you'll try to do it in a prison. And finally, some separate topic just for laugh at the end. So the Spanish woman was buried to the ground in a cave for 500 days. She is a volunteer for experiment to learn the asocial behavior, so she got no clue what was happening in outside world for almost 2 years. Yeah, 500 days is less than that. So she doesn't know that the COVID pandemic has almost finished and that Russia started the war against Ukraine. Sometimes I think to get down to the cave as well. My friends, now press the like to this video, and if you want to support my job, you may always find some links in the video description just below. You may also support me on Patreon or on a sponsorship on this YouTube channel. My friends, thank you so much for your help. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.